Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Alrighty, Vikings Vent Line every weekend here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel and podcast feed. The Vikings have made some moves. I want to talk to some Vikings fans about what they think about the free agent additions to the Vikings. If you've been thinking about getting on this show for the first time, I would love to hear from you. Hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. That's where you can reach out to put in a request to join the show. You can hit me up on Twitter or via email on the Score North app as well. That also works. But vikingsventline@gmail, kind of a good central hub. If you'd like to join this show, if you have thoughts on free agency, thoughts on what the Vikings have done thus far, hit me up, vikingsventline@gmail.com. Purple Daily, Daily Vikings Entertainment. We just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die. And a shout out to Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Thank you to Abby and the team for this sweet little quarter zip we have here. You know, as the ground gets a little warmer here in the Twin Cities, we had like 70 degrees on Friday. Knock on wood. You know, we're getting closer and closer to summer. You want to make sure that air conditioning is up to snuff and working appropriately. No DIYing it when it comes to that type of things. You need to go call Standard Heating and Air. They'll help you out. They'll help you diagnose what you're looking at. They have all the parts for you. And whether maybe you're looking to buy a home too, you want to make sure that furnace you're buying and purchasing is in good shape. That's something that I had to run into, and thankfully Standard was able to come out and give me peace of mind for where that furnace was at. Without them, would have made that process a lot more complicated. So if you have any HVAC, furnace, air conditioning, any type of those HVAC needs, go call Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, and a proud sponsor of the Purple Daily Draft Party, which is also coming up in about a little over a month. We're super excited to have them on board, and we're super excited to talk to all the Vikings fans at the Fillmore in April. All right, let's get our guys in here. Let's get Blake and Max. Guys, welcome to Vikings Vent Line. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I'm great.
Awesome. Blake, you've been on Vent Line before. Are you in Minnesota? You located somewhere else? Where are you at?
Rochester, Minnesota.
Rochester, okay. And Max, how about you?
Right now I live in Chicago, but I'm
Okay.
from Wisconsin, so it's been a weird time as a Vikings fan.
Okay, so grew up in Wisconsin and became a Vikings fan then?
I did. My dad was a diehard Vikings fan and been one since the day I was born, pretty much.
Okay. Well, you went from Packer territory to like Bears territory too, I take it, right? Like I've got to imagine your heart deep in the Bears.
Deep in Bears.
Oh, boys. All right, well, Bears have made a lot of moves, but so have the Vikings. So let's talk about some of these additions that the Vikings have made in free agency thus far. Blake, I'll start with you. Who has been your favorite addition to the Vikings roster through free agency thus far?
Ryan Kelly, our new center. I think Viking fans, Max, Declan, I think we're sick and tired of seeing our center getting lifted up like a rag doll and tossed into our own quarterback for a sack. I think we're tired of seeing guys, four-man blitz squads going right up the middle and chasing our quarterback into the waiting arms of another edge. Ryan Kelly is about to get a 22-year-old quarterback under center with a new revamped offensive line. And I bet KOC right now, he's thinking of brand new plays because knowing he's going to have a all-pro style center, under center, snapping his new young quarterback the ball and having all the time in the world. No worrying about pressures coming up the middle. That also opens up the run game now because now our running backs can have opportunity to not get 2 yards per carry because our center can't move anybody. It's now going to be Aaron Jones, 4 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry, and that sets up a more reasonable second down and a manageable third down. And we don't have to worry about these 3rd and 6s that Viking fans are just praying that we get this next first down on a game-winning drive. I think that has been the best signing so far, and just adding his teammate Will is just a better picture because you already have that bond already. You don't have to worry about them getting to know each other. They know their strengths and weaknesses. So I think Ryan has been the best signing.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised they moved on from Bradbury. I thought that they'd probably roll with it for one more year. I am all for it. I'm for them going after another center, and Kelly has battled some injuries before, so hopefully he stays healthy. But I think like tag teaming him and Fries, to your point, Blake, instead of putting different players in an order that haven't been able to play with any continuity, you got two guys that have been essentially joint at the hip for the better part of the last few years. So that makes life easier. You're just switching uniforms essentially. And there'll be some scheme things I'm sure that they'll do differently in Minnesota than they did in Indianapolis. But fortifying the offensive line, something Vikings fans have been just banging the table for forever. They finally did it thus far. Max, how about you, man? Who has been your favorite free agent addition to the Vikings?
We've had a lot of really good free agent additions this year. I mean, it's so hard to narrow it down to one, so I have a tie for mine. Will Freeze, Ryan Kelly, awesome pickups. Jonathan Allen, awesome. But I think getting Kelly and also Javon Hargrave, really just like doubling down and saying, okay, we have big positional needs in the front forward, in these big guys, and just saying, you know what, we're not only going to get one player, we're going to get two players in both offense and defensive line, and really just solidify that. I mean, same goes on defense. I mean, when we're on defense and it's a 3rd and 2 situation, and we just know that we don't have that push up front. Love Harrison Phillips. He needs more help there. I mean, Jonathan Bullard, people like that have been awesome rotational players, but just having, especially in the defense that we run, being the 3-4, and then having 3 just monsters in the middle between Harrison Phillips, Javon Hargrave, and Jonathan Allen is just absolutely huge for this team.
Max, do you feel like this is probably like the deepest, least personnel-wise, this Vikings defense has looked since like maybe 2017? It just, with all the pieces that are in place here, the new additions, do you feel like this defense is probably going to be mirrored to the top of the NFL? What are your expectations for the defense in 2025?
I feel great. I mean, even going into last season, like all these free agent signings that we had with not a lot of cap space, like we didn't know exactly the player that Blake Cashman was going to be, or even Jonathan Grenard. We knew Andrew Van Ginkel was good, but under Brian Flores, like they played so good. Like it was so fun to watch. And then now, like actually having like good big guys in there is going to help our secondary, which was super weak at some points in the season last year, and not having to blitz everybody to get pressure. We can apply a 4-man blitz, 5-man blitz, and then have that really help our secondary. Yeah, it's super deep, and it's going to be huge this season.
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously Harrison Smith coming back too, Blake. I got to imagine everyone feels pretty good about that. Even with Flores also obviously coming back, which is a big part of this too. You talked about continuity with the offensive line. Well, I mean, now you get 2 monsters on the defensive tackle side, and hopefully, to your point of Vikings rushing attack, good solid F2 yards. Well, now on the opposite side, the Vikings defense should hopefully be able to stop the run and get more pressure up the middle too.
Absolutely. I think they had a plan. Trenches. You don't win the war without building a good trench. And I think Brian Flores right now is those gears are turning, and how to create exotic pressures from all different angles. He's going to be throwing stuff, knowing he's got beef in that line now. So I think quarterbacks next year are going to be having their hands full, because last year they knew if we can just survive into the 4th when those guys are worn out. I think this year this could be like new weapons are rotating in and out. So I think Brian Flores is definitely creating something new in his head right now. Which that makes it more exciting.
Heck yeah. So with some free agent additions obviously now in place, Max, for the draft, what are you looking for the Vikings to do? Do you want them to stick and pick? Are you looking them to trade back? Also, maybe what positions do you want to see the Vikings address? What do you kind of want the Vikings to do at the draft this year?
I think this year for the draft, you just kind of take what the draft gives us. I think we should have definitely a safety on our mind. And if we can't get the guy that we want, I do not want another Lewis Cine situation where we could take a really good player in that position, trade back down, try to get all these picks. It's tough because we don't have another pick until the 97th. If we can get a guy like Nick Amonowori from North Carolina and like really like plug that guy in, Harrison Smith isn't going to be around, I would think, after this season. I mean, just getting a guy in there, rotational guy, and not trading back down too many spots. I mean, I would like to see us get a 2nd-round pick so we can maybe get a running back, but definitely take best player available if the safety position isn't there. I think that a guy like Kenneth Grant could fall a little bit. I know his combine status didn't really help him a ton in the draft, but best player available for sure.
Okay. BPA. Blake, what about you? Same thing? Do you want to go a little different? What do you think?
I agree with Max. The Spielman era was all about trading and acquiring picks. That haunts Viking fans. And we thought we got rid of that, but as we all know, that first draft of this new regime, they did the exact same thing, trading within divisional rivals. And I think he learned from that. And best thing is, don't reach. You need a player, don't reach for the guy. Just take whomever's available. If it's a safety, take the safety. If it's a defensive tackle, take him. Offensive guard, take him. If a running back falls to that position, take him. Don't reach. And definitely don't trade back, because we could have had Kyle Hamilton on our team. That's the biggest what if in Viking history. We could have had that guy as our replacement for Harrison Smith, and we wouldn't be talking about his replacement. We already have him. So it's best case scenario, take the best position on the board, whether it's something you already acquired in the free agency market. A lot of these guys are 30 years old. They don't have much time. They have 2 years, 3 years. Why not draft them, rotate them? We're not rushing Dallas Turner. He'll be ready to go probably this year or next year. So don't reach. Don't try to grab that safety that's not there. If he's a second-round draft pick, wait. Get the best player at 1.
Yeah, I mean, so at running back, so they obviously bring back Aaron Jones, and so Blake, you're good with whenever the Vikings are on the clock. Hopefully, the board falls as it is. Like, do you think that they can still find like a future running back to pair with him, pairing with Aaron Jones in 2025?
This is probably the quarterback class is I'm not thrilled about it. A lot of teams are going to reach for that next quarterback. This running back class is deep. You can get a guy in the second, a third, maybe even the fourth. I'm an Iowa guy. Caleb Johnson, he'll probably be there at the 97th pick. So he's a bruising running back, kind of more of a downhill runner. You can pair that with Aaron Jones' kind of receiving paralysis and scat back mentality. You can create a confusion when rotating those two backs. But if a running back, one of the top running backs, the kid from Boise, I doubt he'll survive that long. But if he's falling and you can trade up a few picks and snag him, that I think will be worth for the draft pick. But if that kid from North Carolina is there at the pick, I say go with him if nothing else is available.
I like it. Max, how about you? Future running back, do you think that they have a nice like 1B or 1A to pair with Aaron Jones in this year's draft?
No, I agree with Blake completely. I'm a big fan of Caleb Johnson. I think Alshon Jeffney, he's definitely not going to – if he gets past Dallas at the 12th pick, I'll be shocked. But if for some reason we've seen crazier things happen, if he starts slipping and we can get a way to trade back up and get that guy, that'd be awesome. But this class is so deep. I mean, there's so many good players. I think every single team is going to end up drafting, if not one running back, at least potentially two, and then just getting that guy. I mean, like Aaron Jones was, I think, a 5th-round pick. You got like Kareem Hunt, players like that who just kind of come up out of nowhere. Everybody's picking them up on fantasy football and just putting up huge numbers, just like these sleepers. This is going to be a huge draft class for that. And again, not reaching. I mean, I would really like to get back into the 2nd round somehow, just to kind of like solidify we can get a guy like even the other guy from Ohio State, Quishon Jenkins, I believe his name is, and just get like this good 1-2 punch with Aaron Jones. Love Cam Akers. I don't want to trade for him again. But yeah, Ty Chandler, I think he's just going to be another rotational guy, but somebody to pair up with Aaron Jones is going to be huge. And he's not going to be injured. I mean, every single game for the last 8 weeks of the season. I mean, he was banged up and looking rough for a little bit there.
Yeah, they just need some good youth and someone that doesn't have all the miles on the tire that Aaron Jones did and Dalvin Cook did at the end. They have to find some new fresh blood, and hopefully they find a nice pairing there at some point in the draft to go with Aaron Jones. On Jordan Addison, Blake, what's your long-term plan with him? I mean, do you see a world where he actually is extended after his rookie contract? He might face a suspension to start the year. When on the field, he's obviously a very important part of this offense. There's been a lot of, I know Judd's thrown out the trade idea. We've all thrown out kind of some random stuff on it. However, where do you kind of fall on the Jordan Addison part with the Vikings?
I'm going to be blunt. Trade.
Okay.
I look into the future. We've made a lot of trades, which means picks. We're shallow on picks this year. We're shallow on picks next year. And you can't win a Super Bowl if you don't have picks. And look at the Rams. They said, screw the picks, right? And they won a Super Bowl. But now look, they have some down period. Now they're still there, but they don't rebuild through the draft. They have to rely on free agency. when I look at Jordan Addison, a lot of these teams now, they're going to be searching for their receiver 1A. And if Jordan Addison is that guy, if he produces this year, you got to ask yourself, what is his value? We can get a first round him, maybe even a third round. Now you're going into the following draft class with 2 firsts, 2 thirds. Use those 2 thirds, maybe get back into the second. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I know you guys touched base on this week as well. Cooper Kupp is in free agency. His ties with KOC, if KOC can work that magic saying, hey, you take a pay grade and you come here, give us a 2-year deal, you'll win another Super Bowl. Maybe your first year, you won't be a 1,000-yard receiver, 100 receptions a year. You'll probably 700, 600 yards. But when Jordan Addison, if he gets traded, Cooper goes up into that one spot, we get more draft picks. We can then rearm for a Super Bowl push with the young talent. And we'll be a very young franchise for a long time with those 5-year rookie contracts. Look what the Eagles did. They used those picks and they built that defense into a monster. I've never seen the Chiefs get destroyed like that in the first 40 seconds of a Super Bowl. And I think that's what the Vikings need to do. And they need to look at that Philly playbook and say, okay, we need to rebuild in the draft with young talent that is hungry and just go ham on the NFC North. So if that means we got to trade a valuable asset like Addison, I say do it. You got to think of the long-term future as the team as a whole, not just an individual person. JJ is one thing. Jefferson is a once-in-a-generational receiver.
Yeah.
You cannot let him walk. Addison is just a diamond. You can trade a diamond and collect another diamond.
I dig it. Max, how about you? Where do you fall with the Jordan Addison plan?
Obviously, he's been like a super awesome. He's a great player. I mean, just a really good. He's like you said, he's a diamond. He's going to be suspended a few games next year. He's had some off the field stuff, which I always like to think that we could look past and get over it. But like, it's a business, and we see this happen all the time in the NFL. If we could get a good draft pick this year for him, I would say we trade him. I don't know if we can get a first round pick for him. I would love to think that we could. I think realistically, probably a second. I think a team I look at this year is a wide receiver needy team who's got a brand new quarterback in Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Maybe get that duo back together. I'm sure he wouldn't mind that at all. Maybe he can potentially even get a first round pick for that, move up a few spots. And like we said, we're talking about before, if that Alshon Jeffrey guy is still there and at around 19, I think is what Seattle has. I mean, I doubt he'll fall that far, but just something along those lines. But if we can't get a trade for him this year, I think we keep him. If we can't get another guy like Cooper Kupp or even Tyler Lockett, I don't feel good about Jalen Naylor as a wide receiver too. He's pretty dynamic, but he has a lot of drops. I mean, he could put in the work in the jugs machine this offseason and really get those hands ready, but I would feel much better about trading Jordan Addison if we can get a guy like Cooper Kupp, which I would love to see in purple, or Tyler Lockett for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point that if you're going to trade him now, Addison, that is like, yeah, you got to have a better backup plan. And I mean, Blake, you threw out Cooper Kupp. That's a great addition, but yeah, would Tyler Lockett do it for you? If you trade Addison, you better have that plan figured out. Maybe there's, as you said, Blake, there's diamonds you can be traded. Maybe there's another diamond in the draft. You got like a high enough draft pick for him. So I think he probably is still on the Vikings roster to start 2025, but I think long term, I mean, paying paying an elite wide receiver in Jefferson and paying another big money potentially to Addison, you might want to cash out while you obviously can. Before we wrap Vikings Vent Line, Blake, any other hot takes that you've had in the can here? Any other shout-outs you'd love to give on Vikings Vent Line? The floor is yours.
I'm going to say this. As Max was talking, an idea kind of filtered in my head.
Okay.
If we want to trade up in the draft, there is a AFC West team is in desperate need for a weapon, and that's the Raiders. Why not tie our first-round draft pick and Addison and trade up into that top spot? I'm just throwing that out there. Now you got the 6th spot to acquire that running back of our future. And now, but obviously, as you said, we need a backup plan for Justin Jefferson. So if you don't get that backup plan, I say don't do it. But if we acquire Cooper Kupp, I would be like, hey, Raiders want a first-round draft pick and a wide receiver 1.
I like it. I think The only issue is like now that John Spytek there's Pete Carroll's there, I actually like kind of trust what they're doing. Previous Raiders regimes, and maybe Davis would still green light this because he's crazy.
It's the Davis family; they're all nuts.
It feels like they might be reluctant to do something like that. Where in previous regimes, I think you could find a sucker there, and you could probably convince them to do so. But I like it. Like, it's a good idea. I do like the idea of maybe trading him. A first round pick that high, I think it's probably too rich for the blood, but not a bad idea. I do like it. Max, any last hottest takes you have in the can that you weren't able to unleash here on Vent Line?
Yeah, I guess just kind of touching on the Jordan Addison. I mean, once you said trade up for the Raiders, if we could even flip-flop our first round for the Seattle Seahawks first round and Jordan Addison, and then maybe tie in their second round pick. I'm not an NFL executive general manager. I don't really know if that would go through. I don't know if that's realistic, but I think it's not that late. They don't have that high of a pick where that's not in the ballpark. I think it'd be pretty nice to get that second round pick, best player available with that, get a safety, and then get one of these really good running backs. If we get a guy like Cooper Kupp first, if we get a free agent wide receiver that's going to be a solid pickup, not just a depth rotational guy, I could definitely see Jordan Addison getting traded before the season starts. If not, I think he's on the team.
Okay. Blake, any shout outs here before we wrap up on Vikings Vent Line that you want to give?
I'm just going to say to all my coworkers at the Mayo Clinic, we have a couple Packer fans and a couple Viking fans. We talk football a lot. And to my girlfriend, Rachel, who is a Niners fan. So she's not liking her team being dismantled. But she's been to a couple Super Bowls. I have not. I would like to go to one.
Yeah. Yeah, what, 3 Super Bowls in the last 12 years for the Niners must be pretty rough. Must be pretty rough that you're in a rebuilding year.
So.
Yeah, seriously. Max, how about you? Any shout outs here on Vikings Vent Line before we say goodbye?
Yeah, a couple shout outs. Like shout out my girlfriend, Kira. She's been so supportive and just so understanding that myself growing up in Wisconsin, then moving to Chicago, I haven't really had a ton of people to talk Vikings with, and she has just been so on board with it. We went to the last two Vikings Bears game. We actually went to the Vikings Falcons game last season in Minnesota, where we just saw Kirk Cousins just get absolutely destroyed. And we had a great time doing that, and appreciate the support. Love her very much. And shout out my dad, who got me into the Vikings when I was just a little kid. Unfortunately, he's passed away 5 years ago. So, I mean, when you guys say we just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die, I think of him every time. So,
yeah,
shout out to you guys.
It really is a family affair, whether it's your parents or whoever it was getting you in as a Vikings fan, and then the "before I die" mantra that we have. Yeah, it definitely hits home. Obviously, when those situations come up in life. But guys, great takes, great stuff here on Vikings Vent Line. Appreciate you slinging some here. And if anyone who's listening, watching, wants to be on a future episode of Vikings Vent Line, you can hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. Appreciate everyone listening. Purple Daily, Daily Vikings Entertainment, where we just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die.